what I think people on the internet do not always appreciate is the romance that Padme Amidala goes through. People think of it as Anakin's story. I like to think of it as Padme's story. This is something Padme is going through. Hey guys, welcome to the Rogue 3 podcast, where we discuss everything Star Wars with a positive outlook on the saga we love. I'm Austin.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Austin.
And today we are going to be discussing more hot takes from the saga we love. This time we're going to be focusing on the prequels. So we're each going to share a hot take of ours that we have about the prequels. I want you to remember two things. We love Star Wars. It is our favorite thing. And even if our hot take is something we don't like, we still love Star Wars. You don't have to agree with us either. So if you don't agree with this hot take, remember, you're allowed to have your own opinion. Just like we're allowed to have our own opinion. But at the end of the day, we all love Star Wars. That's why we're here. But first, let's go ahead and start with this week in Star Wars. What'd y'all do this week?
So for me, my big thing was I picked up the new Ahmed Best Jar Jar comic. So if you're not familiar, Ahmed Best is the voice actor for and performer for Jar Jar Binks, and then he's also been the character Kelleran Beck, who's appeared in a couple things. Most recently and most notably The Mandalorian, or was it Book of Boba Fett? I can't remember which one that flashback took place in.
I think it was Book of Boba Fett.
I think it is Book of Boba Fett, yeah.
Either way.
They all bleed together.
Yeah.
It's the same show.
He was the Jedi that rescued Grogu during Order 66.
Mm-hmm.
And he's played by the same guy that played Jar Jar. And so he recently, this week, had a comic come out about those two characters. And I won't spoil it for Mike and Austin because they haven't read it yet, but it was really good. And I thought it was just gonna be like a cute little like one shot, but it really like had a lot of storytelling in it. It was actually a pretty good character story for Jar Jar. So I'm hoping the story kind of they pick up and run with it, whether in more comics or a TV show or something. It was pretty good.
I'm excited to give it a shot.
Yeah, I love that he gets a chance to like shine and have this like Star Wars renaissance with Kelleran Beck and doing this comic and other stuff. I love seeing that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I've been kind of not reading much Star Wars, not watching much Star Wars, which is odd for me. But I have been working on a new 3D printed project, which is a big one. It is a full Death Trooper helmet. And so it's about 3 pieces plus these black pieces for the breathers. And I haven't done much more than print and glue them together. But I'm really happy with how it looks. It took multiple days to print most of these pieces. So it's a long process. And it's been too cold to work to like smooth it or sand it or anything like that. So it's kind of just been sitting on the shelf. But I'm really excited to get to build one of these. And I'm also going to try and add some green lights into the rebreathers so they glow.
Oh, that's going to be cool.
Like how they do in Rogue One and other shows and things that they've been in since. So that's been a big project that took a while to finally finish. But I was able to get it going and everything. So that's I'm really excited as like my next big thing to go on a shelf. And I was so scared that it wouldn't fit on the shelf, but it does.
Good.
Oh, that's awesome. And you have plenty of extra cubes, right?
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of space.
For our audio only listeners, you can go on our Instagram. You can see pictures of it there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I posted about it. Yeah.
Now you're going to give it a slick coat of paint.
Oh yeah. It's going to be smooth and shiny and black glossy. Yeah. So it's going to be
black, not pink, purple.
No? I thought about red, but I thought that's too Sith-like, so black it is.
I was hoping for like a Mardi Gras look, like a purple with the green lights.
Ooh, with the green. Okay, well, you may convince me yet.
That's a choice. That's a way someone might do it.
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if someone's done that for like Mandalorian.
Oh, I'm
armor,
or
like the. One of those
yeah.
groups, 501st.
Yeah. I mean, people paint the stormtrooper helmets and stuff, all the different, ways.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone's done a Mardi Gras.
It's their
one
best
before,
Sabine look.
Yeah.
Their best Sabine. We love
Sabine
us
would be
Sabine.
proud.
Yeah.
You're kind of like a real life Sabine, aren't you, Mike?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I'm not a painter. If I can use spray paint that is just one color, that's best. You can see the Scout Trooper helmet up there. That's just straight white. I can't paint and design things. I'm printing files that other people made online. So like,
which
don't
is
give me
why
too
we
much
marry
credit.
people that do.
Yes. Yeah. I did marry an artist.
Oh, like Paolo.
Just
That's
like
nice.
Paulo.
Just like Paolo.
Yeah, I'm not in politics, though.
No, well, he went on to become an artist. Padme went to. Oh, well. I wonder who
You're-
Paolo ended up with.
You're kind of government.
Your government.
Government, yeah. Government, not politics, thankfully. I prefer
There you go.
government, not politics.
I have, done much the same as y'all. Not a whole lot. I did get Low Red Moon, and I started reading that one. So I'm just a couple of chapters in, but enjoying that one so far. Mike and I will be doing a mini review on that one eventually. Once we get that one finished, we won't do a full one since Austin's not going to read that one as well. But we'll calling you out. That's okay. You don't play the games. It's fine.
Yeah.
Other than that, watching a little Clone Wars. I've been rewatching it very slowly. I'm about to start Ambush, which is the original episode. But there's so many flashback episodes.
Yeah.
Between seasons 2 and 3 to get through when you're watching in chronological order. Either way, all right. Shall we get started? We got some hot takes. We got some internet to piss off right now.
Yeah, this, last time we talked about like our original trilogy, I looked back and I was like, they maybe weren't as spicy as I imagined they would be.
Mm-hmm.
But these movies aren't nearly, they're becoming more loved for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And I think our next episode, which is going to be the sequel trilogy, will be
spicy,
raising some eyebrows more so than these. But I'm kind of curious what you guys have thought of, because these are I think we're all in agreement. Like these are our favorite trilogy.
Yeah.
And these are our movies. We grew up with these.
Looking at it as we've talked, now a hot take doesn't have to be a negative. It can be a positive. No. And perhaps there's some of those. So I'm kind of curious what you guys think.
Yeah, Austin, take it away.
Yeah. So for me, I thought long and hard because this is very well trodden ground. This is not thinking of hot takes about the prequels is not like an original experience.
Wait, there's been discourse on the Star Wars prequels on the internet.
Believe it or not, there's about 20 years of discourse about
the Star Wars like prequels. 30 years at this point. People were talking about it on the internet since like 95.
And the one that I had. I think you could almost just say this is a factual statement, but I think the Star Wars prequels are not nearly as planned out as a lot of people say they are. I think in a lot, particularly like in people that really hold the prequels to be very precious to them, and especially when contrasting them to the sequel trilogy, a lot of people like to pretend that George really had episodes 1, 2, and 3 fully mapped out when he started making Phantom Menace. Some people like to go, so including George Lucas, like to pretend he had them mapped out in 1977, and that is just could not be further from the truth. There's no real evidence that he had lots of concrete details planned. I think he had. I think there were some. Yeah, there were some really random things, like the volcano planet, and I'm pretty sure there's he said at some point that Darth Vader made C-3PO, which is a really random thing to have said back then.
Right.
There are things that George Lucas had nuggets of back then for sure. I'm not taking away from that. And I think when he was developing the prequels, he knew it was going to end at the Mustafar duel, and he was thinking about stuff like that. But broad strokes, most of the details about episodes 1, 2, and 3, he did not have designed at the beginning of the trilogy. A couple of I think key examples of that. One, the character of Count Dooku. First of all, I think if Count Dooku was a planned character from the beginning, he would have been in Phantom Menace. I think if you were trying to plant seeds for that, you would have had him on the Jedi Council and all that stuff. But just factually speaking, we know that from the making of documentaries and the art of Star Wars. Attack of the Clones books, when they were going into production on Attack of the Clones, they had not narrowed down who the Sith character of the story was, and they were going back and forth between a like politician, like smooth politician that's kind of what Count Dooku became, and then also a Sith witch, like a female Sith. And a lot of the
Asajj.
concept art, yeah, it was essentially Asajj Ventress. So the concept art was Asajj Ventress, and they were leaning towards the Sith witch. And then George called Christopher Lee and was like, "You want to do Star Wars?" And he said, "Sure." And like, I'm pretty sure in the Art of Star Wars, it was like weeks. It was like a few weeks before they went filming. They like narrowed that out, and so that's just like one example of them not having like a very important character planned out from the beginning. Another example I think is pretty clear from how heavily he's featured in Phantom Menace that like Jar Jar Binks was supposed to be a big character in all those movies, and because of the reaction, they reduced his part substantially. And there's lots of other examples of this, but I like Owen and Beru, Lars. Like I can't, we were children, like very young, but I would imagine if I was like an adult watching Phantom Menace, I'd be like, where are the Lars family? Where do they come into play here? And I could be wrong. I just have a hard time believing that George had that ironed out, like what they were going to be doing in the next movie with Shmi and those characters. So that is my hot take.
I think he really had this idea of a virgin birth set in his head, and then he was like, "Oh shit."
Luke has an uncle and aunt.
Luke has an uncle.
An uncle and aunt whose last name is not Skywalker.
So it is not Skywalker, right? That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And Uncle Owen was always Anakin's brother, though, right?
I don't know if they actually established that. I don't know if they said that.
So it could have been Beru.
It could have been like Beru could have been the sister.
Beru Skywalker. That would have been interesting to see a little Beru running around in episode 1.
I feel like the way that she says like he's got too much of his father in him. I feel like I like kind of feels like that's an in-law talking to a sibling more so than the other way. But
and it's also more of an implication that he has spent more than like 2 hours with them, right?
Yeah.
Like he's barely spent any time with them in the movie for her to say like too much of his father. Like she doesn't even know him.
She knows he's a jet setter. He's off and about, as Luke
with a bad haircut.
With a bad haircut. His mom.
Yeah.
And unfortunately she died, and that's all I know about him. And then they left.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know that maybe they later learn that he killed all the Tusken Raiders and stuff, but like those details didn't, weren't planned out.
Yeah. And I think it's important to like just because it wasn't planned out doesn't mean it's not good. The concept of like planned trilogies, so that's like very much like a modern concept. Yeah. Like back in the day, movies were made, and you made one movie and it was good. You made the next movie, it was good. You made the next one. They didn't really do the concept of trilogies.
Franchises
like
were not as much right.
And so this is not like besmirching the prequel trilogies, which I love dearly. It's just a hot take.
I think it's true. It's been true of Star. So like, I think part of like what you're thinking is like people point towards the sequel trilogy and say like they should have planned it out like the other ones. It's like the other ones have not been really planned out like, at all. The idea of Darth Vader being Luke's father and other things like that. Like, okay, Luke kisses his sister. Like, do you think that
wasn't intentional?
No, like those things weren't planned out either, really. But it is true that I would say like you see that it is the same overall vision for the prequels versus the sequels and the original trilogy versus those, right? Because you still have a main creator or architect over them. Mm-hmm. So even though they weren't, he claims that they were, planned out from the start and all of this, that you still see that at least it's the same sort of voice throughout.
For good or for ill, it was all George's intention.
Yeah.
We love it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that kind of goes sort of in, you kind of talked about like them broadly. And you talked about Jar Jar and the backlash. And so my hot take is that The Phantom Menace is by far the most fun Star Wars movie. I think it's the most fun Star Wars property, really.
But
A
Mike, I
TV
thought that the Phantom
show.
Menace was just boring politics. What do you mean? It's just politics and boring
Well, according to
politics.
you guys really love that.
Yeah, I think it would have been
Hey,
more fun if there had been more
hey,
politics.
I would have liked more,
Um,
right? More politics.
but like for me, I've talked about it before that the Phantom Menace is I think by far my most watched Star Wars movie, and it is
Yeah.
fun. It is so much fun because you have a mostly a protagonist with Anakin somewhat as a child. So like you kind of get these glimpses of childhood fun and excitement and stuff like that. And it's not bogged down in like war and all of this other stuff, these galactic conflicts going on, because it's a much smaller scope. I think that makes it more fun. And you could argue that that's, it should have been bigger. It should have been connected to the larger things going on in the galaxy, but also just like the other pieces of it with Jar Jar, with the pod race, with all of
Mm-hmm.
those things that add to it, it makes it the most fun Star Wars movie, anything really for me. I think counting in TV shows, counting in books, all of that stuff, I would probably take Phantom Menace over a lot of it. If I'm going to just choose one thing to enjoy, I think I would choose Phantom Menace to watch, to enjoy, to just get pleasure out of, because it's in itself a pretty good, complete story, but it's also just enjoyable.
I really think of it. It's so separate from the other two prequels. It's its own little prologue to Star Wars. It has a lot less baggage, a lot less necessity of story than 2 and 3 have. 2 and 3 have a lot of ground to trot, and Episode 1 just sets up a couple of characters and it does its own thing. It has fun. It's really, by and large, a kind of small scale story. It's just centered over the dramatic dealings of the politics on a small planet. Compared to some other Star Wars stories, it doesn't have as many galactic consequences.
And that's what I'm hoping our next two movies will be similar to that feeling of, it's not this galactic wide conflict with Mandalorian and Grogu and Starfighter, that they're smaller, more kind of fun, but a little bit intimate stories.
You could say that about Empire Strikes Back too. A lot of people will cite that as their favorite movie. That's a very intimate story. It doesn't have as many far-reaching consequences as 4 or 6, which have enormous galactic consequence. 5 is really a personal story, and Episode 1 is very much a personal story.
I think Episode 1, I think the reason why people are so nostalgic for like that prequel in particular, I think the general consensus is that most people like Episode 3 the most. I think people are really nostalgic for Episode 1. I think that draws back to, like, if you're a kid, no matter what your interest is, you're going to be able to latch on to something in that movie. Like, if you're a kid that likes like action scenes, you got the pod race for that, and they really lean into that with a lot of like the toys, the video games, and all that stuff. You've got Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan for like classic Jedi stuff. You've got Darth Maul, who's like the coolest bad guy Star Wars had had up until that point. You've got Queen Amidala, that's like really regal and pretty. It has a bunch of different outfits. It's very like dolls and stuff like that. She's really, there's never been a character better for it than her. Jar Jar is there for like comedic effect. Like it's really like, for a kid, no matter what you want, it's in that movie. And I think that really lends itself to that like fun aspect. There's definitely slow parts of that movie. It's just like there is with any movie. But I think the big action scenes, with the lightsaber fights, pod race, all that stuff really makes it a good time.
I would say that the characters are very largely uncomplicated too, compared to when you have like adult Anakin in Episode 2 and 3, very complicated character. There's not a whole lot that's complicated about Qui-Gon Jinn. There's not a whole lot that's complicated about Queen Amidala, and I think that's to the benefit of the movie. It makes it easy. It's more accessible for a child to watch, I think.
Yep.
There's something very interesting to me as far as the nostalgia piece, where the way it's filmed feels very, very different from the way episodes 2 and 3 are filmed, which I think helps to separate it out. It's filmed on actual film as compared to the digital filming of 2 and 3. And I think there's something, I guess, charming about it. And it just makes it fun to watch. It's like the very end of an era of film. And it's kind of like the ultimate form of what film could look like, with little bits of digital effects sprinkled in, but it's still a film. And it's kind of the end of that before we move into digital filming, which is not inferior. I don't mean to say it's inferior at all, but just different.
But yeah, I think, again, I'll say it's the most fun Star Wars movie there is, easily.
Speaking of fun, what's your hot take, Austin?
What is my hot take? Okay, so as a little boy, the age of 8, I just fell in love with Padme Amidala. She is one of my favorite characters. Now, that is not a hot take. Padme is awesome, and I think people on the internet really appreciate her. What I think people on the internet do not always appreciate is the romance that Padme Amidala goes through. And notice, the way I mentioned that, I like to think of that romance. People think of it as Anakin's story. I like to think of it as Padme's story. This is something Padme is going through. And I think there's something really tragically beautiful about that romance. For the record, I am not claiming they're a healthy relationship. Ultimately, it was always going to end in failure. They did lots of things wrong. But I think there's something beautifully tragic about the way their love story plays out. I think it's people are always like, oh, in episode 1, she's, hitting on a 9-year-old boy and she's 14. And not at all the case. I think that I like that they're building off of something. We have a foundation on which to build their relationship. They're not complete strangers when they meet again in episode 2. They have a past, and he was integral to her being able to save her planet. And I think that piece of it makes it easier for Padme to see him as a hero when she meets him again in episode 2. And when they meet, they're both very, very young people. Anakin is only 19 years old, 20 years old,
19
and 19, and she's 24, and she's just starting her career in politics. And I think that's a time when people are doing a lot of exploring, and they fall into this almost Romeo and Juliet-esque romance, which I just find so fascinating, this idea of star-crossed lovers. That's where Across the Stars comes from, where no matter what they did, they were always set up for failure. And watching them battle against the will of the Force because they love each other so much, I think is really beautiful. I think that the situations that they're thrown into did a lot to propel their romance further. When you think you're about to die, I think you let yourself fall in love with someone a little bit easier than.
That's why I got married. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly. No, that's why we're going to get married.
Yeah, exactly.
I like to think of us as star-crossed lovers, Austin. So really awful things are going to happen to us.
So I would say I mostly agree with that. We made a secret here that Padme is my favorite character too. And I obviously the relationship's problematic, and it's intended to be that, like that's like in the text, like it's a problematic romance. That's not the point that Austin's making here. I think a huge thing people overlook, like in their relationship dynamics, like these are two very atypical individuals. In that, like, Anakin was raised as a slave, in like really bad conditions, and then was put into like a violent monk order, basically. Like he was going off on all these missions and stuff from a very young age, and like did not at any point really have a childhood. And Padme entered politics, depending on like what canon or legends, whatever, like around the age of 12. And she was in some form of executive office at minimum, at the oldest of 14. Um, she was like ruling a planet, and then by the age of 18, she was in the Senate, and doing that. So she never really had romance. And it's like you could say it's George Lucas's bad writing, but I think you can look at it just like as it is in the text. Like it's telling when Anakin asked her about her previous relationships. She talks about when she was 12 years old
Mhm.
and like a little crush she had at that point. Like she's not really had anything notable since then, and I think it explains why their relationship comes together. And then I think, to Austin's point, had the Battle of Geonosis not happened, like had that not occurred, I don't think it would have progressed any further than
Mm.
it did.
Yeah.
I think Padme would have been like, "This was a nice time, but like you got to go fight a war, and I've got to do this on the home front." But, like once you've said it, you can't like once you've confessed the love, you can't really reel it back in.
Mhm.
And I think it allowed them both to have something that they could be selfish about at a time when they were both having to give so much of themselves to something, to a larger cause. The
It
one
makes me a little misty-eyed just hearing you talk about it.
the one thing that stops me from going like full hog into this is the Tuscan thing.
Mm.
Is Anakin confessing to Padme that he killed the Sand People and then breezing past that. And I think that you can um chalk that up to the same thing as like the Geonosis thing, or make them move past like those
Mhm.
the bumps in the
Something else
road.
is more important.
Yeah. But I think if you could if you changed that scene to Anakin not saying he killed the women and the children, I'm right 100% with Austin that this is a good premise. That one thing keeps me from being like full force behind it.
And I want to talk about the dialogue a little bit because people hate, they hate the dialogue so deeply. I think it sounds very Shakespearean. One of my favorite lines is when Padme says, "I truly, deeply love you, and before we die, I want you to know." And the way that shot is
Mhm.
framed with the music for me, and I think the music does a lot of heavy lifting for their relationship as well. I think that the way we see them towards the end of that movie just locks that romance in for me. And then seeing in the next movie they're planning their life together, and it's really sweet. Like we get these really sweet scenes together, and if you listened to last week, you heard me shit all over the Han Solo Leia romance, because I'm full of hot takes when it comes to romance. I feel like there aren't enough sweet scenes between Han and Leia. It's kind of weird all the way up until episode 6, where we have a couple of sweet scenes, and I would not call what happened on the Falcon in the space slug a sweet scene.
Your hands are trembling.
It's how powerful he feels about it.
Right. Okay. Regardless, I love the dialogue. I like the way they speak to each other. It feels very poetic.
Yep.
And it feels intentionally so, and I don't get that feeling from other romances.
I will honorably disagree.
Ooh. There's no honor in disagreeing with me.
The biggest reason for me, and it's something like more on the like personal side outside of like Star Wars, for me, why it just doesn't quite work for me is going from, okay, he knows her as a little boy, to 10 years later and he's still having dreams about her, and this idea of like fate. And that's like something that I just can't latch onto personally very easily. It's not something that I subscribe to and believe in, is this idea of fate and people are like meant to be together. And so that is how they are, makes it hard for me to buy in. is because I just don't think that happens. I don't believe in something like love at first sight or something like that. It's like, no, you really get to know each other and you learn about each other and you realize, oh, we have this in common and we like doing this together. But for them, it's like, I knew you 10 years ago and we had this weird encounter, but like we were so young that like we don't understand what like romance is and relationships are, to okay, we're now, off on this adventure together. And that's like, you're not really taking time to get to know each other and just like doing day-to-day things like living together or going to have a casual meal together. Like they do those things, but they just like feel so odd to me still. And so I just like can't buy in
Yeah.
very strongly to it.
I think. Well, first of all, I think that confirms that Mike is not a yearner. He does not. He does
Mike
not
does
yearn.
not yearn. The Austins yearn. We
Yeah,
yearn.
but
Uh,
I was just, I think that like that's part of the point though, is that like they don't ever get to be normal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like
no.
why I think that's kind of why they're doomed to fail. I will say I think a lot of people I'm not accusing you of this, Mike, but I think a lot of people like put on Padme that like like Padme did not really think that much about Anakin between
Oh, yeah.
episode 1, episode 2. Like
Right.
she was fond of him. Like she looked back
Mm-hmm.
fondly. She kept the necklace and everything. But like
Mhm.
she looked at that like the way that like a teenage like camp counselor would be like that little precious little
Right.
kid that I
He
like
saved
that
my
was in the
planet.
yeah, like she looked back and fondly for that, but she did not.
That little
But you
boy
can
on Tatooine.
yeah, when she sees him again, she just like dumps a bucket of cold water in Anakin's head of
Mm-hmm.
She
like
does.
the
Yeah.
romance that he'd built up in his head. And I think for Anakin, the reason why he latched onto her so much was first of all because he was like a little boy and he's like at the age when crushes develop, and
Mm-hmm.
second of all, she was like the first person besides his mother that was like kind to him.
Yeah. She
Like she was
acknowledged
just
him.
yeah, like she took like she was like
Mm-hmm.
Qui-Gon was good to him and died immediately, but Padme was just like kind to him, and she really didn't have to be. Like she didn't have
Mm-hmm.
a reason to be doing that, and so I think that's why that I can kind of like move past that. I think it would be a little different if like she was like
Yeah.
hot and bothered when he
When
got off
he
that
shows up.
elevator.
Yeah.
If
I
she's
think
wearing her black leather I just want to be friends outfit as soon as he got off the elevator.
yeah. I think part of my issue too is like looking at, and it's hard to like separate these things out now after watching all of it. Yeah. Is the Clone Wars too, and seeing like how often Anakin is like absurdly jealous and is going off the rails and stuff like that when she's around too. That I'm like, like you talked about the Tusken Raider incident. I'm like, how does she? Those happen again. Those things happen multiple times. So like by the Revenge of the Sith, and I'm like, they're still together and in a relationship, but they never see each other. So like I don't buy it as a relationship that they've actually created. It's like they're still waiting for a chance to create a relationship because they've never had the chance really. And so like it never gets to a point where I like buy it as a relationship. It's still like a flirtatious thing, not a like we're husband and wife and we've built a life together. Like they don't ever get to that. And that's the story, is they're not supposed to. But
Right.
like why I don't like get it, or I don't land on the same level, let's say.
I think I think it just has to come all the way down to what you mentioned about fate and romanticism. And I think this idea that two people want to be together so badly and they literally cannot be together is so beautiful. And maybe that comes down to the gay thing. I don't know. Maybe that's just like, I don't know. Maybe there's something baked into me where I'm like, that's, it's so
People are trying to keep you apart.
Right. People are trying to keep you apart when you
generations.
love people.
Yeah.
And I genuinely do believe that that's part of why I like stories like that is because it feels so personal to me.
I've never thought about it like as a
I made you feel bad now with the gay card, didn't I?
Yeah, as a straight person, like I've never really thought about like the romanticism of like you can't. It's a relationship that's difficult to get together, like and feeling that way. That's kind of cool. I like hearing about that because it makes me think about something in a different way.
There you go.
Yeah.
I hope you appreciate
it.
my thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, and
Hopefully,
isn't that what hot takes are in general? Learning
Right.
It's what
things
hot
different ways?
takes
Learning other
are. Just
people's
hearing someone say
opinions
something new.
thinking of stuff a different way, right? Like that really is why we wanted to talk about our hot takes. Is like we all really enjoy Star Wars, but like we wanted to see like how much do we disagree, or do we all still kind of vibe the same way on things that we think are perhaps controversial, or not everyone agrees. I mean, not everyone agrees on everything in Star Wars. That's ridiculous. Well, we should it that way, but
for the record, we all respect each other's opinions, and when you have a discussion like that, that's very important. Just make sure that you respect each other.
This is how you should do it. For all those Star Wars fans out that have gotten to the end of this episode, this is how you should have those conversations with other people. Not just yell at them, not just go crazy, not call them names. Just say, "Oh, okay, I see what you mean. I don't agree still, but I understand where you're coming from."
It's okay to disagree about a work of fiction. Yeah,
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah,
and we're all still best friends, and it's fine. It's great.
We're all and keep that in mind for the next episode when we talk about the sequels.
Nobody's ever had a hot take about the sequels. Those are universally
I'm excited.
Loves.
Yeah.
I am excited.
Cool. Well, yeah. Thanks for listening to our prequel hot takes. Please share your hot takes. Try and keep it as positive as you can. Think about the wording that you use. And then join us in 2 weeks when we talk about our sequel hot takes.
Yeah. And just for the record, a hot take can be criticism, but you can still give a criticism positively.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
We love each other.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. And for now, this is going to be Rogue 3 signing off.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us to talk about the galaxy far, far away. You can find us on Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, and TikTok as Rogue 3 Media. We look forward to talking with you at the next rendezvous point.